Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic Scrapnik Island Issue 3. I'm going to go ahead and place my spoiler warnings here, because things are starting to go downhill for Sonic, and last time it was going so well. Despite looking intimidating, the Scrapniks made Sonic and Tails as comfortable as possible as they helped them repair their plane. Though not all the Scrapniks were fond of their guests. Mecha Knuckles attacked Sonic, E-117 Sigma, and Mecha Sonic while they were searching for plane parts in the Death Egg. Mecha Knuckles was defeated by Mecha Sonic, but not before Mecha Knuckles briefly knocked Mecha Sonic offline and caused his malicious programming to resurface. Now he has his red eye on the still injured Sonic. Mecha Sonic has Sonic strapped to a table with some Eggman-shaped contraption over his head. Sonic says he really needs to stop with the whole give his enemies the benefit of a doubt routine, as it tends to not work out for him in the long run. Gee, you think? Mecha Sonic disregards Sonic for the moment in order to monitor Tails and Sigma's assistance before focusing his attention towards the Miles Electric. What's sad is that, as Sonic pointed out a moment ago, Mecha Sonic seemed to have changed for the better, even to the point of taking care of a little flower. It's best exemplified by more flashbacks. Sigma had just rebuilt Mecha Sonic the best he could, and he explains that while on Scrapnik Island, Mecha is free to discover his new self. Then we get a montage of the two building the Scrapnik Society, discovering the sunflower on the beach, and Mecha Sonic being praised by the lesser Scrapniks. Well, that Mecha Sonic is gone, as in the present, Sigma reboots and finds the destroyed Mecha Knuckles and recognizes Mecha Sonic's handiwork. He's not the only one to discover something's wrong with Mecha. One of the lesser Scrapniks, Ben, spots Sonic at his mercy and informs Tails via the Miles Electric. Without missing a beat, the two-tailed fox rummages through the nearby junk to assemble a blaster for himself. Now, he and the Egg Robo assistants are ready to menace Mecha Sonic. No, seriously, Tails slapped together a Sega Menacer, the company's answer to the Super Nintendo's Super Scope. The four of them head down the Death Egg's dark hallways while using the Electric as a tracking device. It picks up movement nearby, and the group ready themselves for an ambush, only for the target to be Sigma carrying Mecha Knuckles. He explains to Tails what might have happened to Mecha Sonic. When he rebuilt him, he tried rewriting Eggman's coding the best he could. However, he believes his old protocols have reawakened and twisted his mind. In other words, Mecha's not thinking clearly. A voice coming from the Miles Electric says otherwise. Mecha Sonics. He plays a game of cat and mouse with the group as he goes on a little spiel on what it means to be discarded. At the same time, he uses his speed to start picking them off one by one, starting with Sigma. Next, he grabs Rancheros from behind as he tries in vain to shoot at him. Tails and the remaining two assistants retreat, with Tails pointing out that he underestimated Mecha's speed. Before they can find a small space to stand their ground, Tails finds himself alone, with Mecha Sonic emerging from the shadows. He explains that Eggman considered him his greatest creation to aid him in world domination, and after being rebuilt, he'd hoped the Doctor would retrieve him. Instead, he was abandoned and left to rot on a junk island. He intends to correct this error, and two key aspects of this plan involve Sonic and the Miles Electric. Mecha Sonic offers Tails the chance to walk away if he just hands the device over. Tails refuses, and the two start fighting. Hey Tails, maybe you should try short controlled bursts. When Mecha Sonic knocks the Menacer away, Tails relies on a spin attack to score a hit. I guess spin attack does what Sega don't, huh? This would prove to be Tails' downfall, as Mecha Sonic grabs him and steals the Miles Electric. He's not done with the fox yet. In order to give him a taste of what it's like to be discarded, Mecha Sonic tosses Tails down a nearby garbage chute, where he disappears into darkness. Mecha Sonic returns with the tablet, and when Sonic demands to know where his buddy is, all Mecha can say is he will be joining him soon. We end the issue with what Mecha might be planning to do with Sonic. Use the Miles Electric as part of a mechanism to swap each other's minds. I think that's what's going on based on the monitor right there. I admit, based on the preview pages, I thought we'd be diving into torture horror, the kind featured in movies such as Hostel. I will not show any pictures from that horror genre because even I have limits. So instead, enjoy looking at one of the alternate covers for this issue. In reality, the issue dives into the sci-fi action horror genre with some mad science sprinkled on top. The obvious inspiration being Aliens. Great movie, by the way. The big giveaways being Tails' tracker being similar to the ones being used by the Colonial Marines, a recognizable line from the movie, and the group being ambushed by something that has a home turf advantage. This was definitely not a bug hunt. The way Mecha Sonic took care of Sigma and his assistants was terrifying. By the way, I've since learned that the assistants' names were based on egg dishes. Because of course they are. We don't know what he did to them, but I'm guessing it wasn't pretty. But that's the thing with sci-fi action horror. There's always some hapless soldiers that fall victim to the monster, while the one heroic character stands a somewhat better chance against it. As Tails takes charge in this issue, I can't help but be reminded of Tails' 30th anniversary special that came out earlier this year. Spoilers for that special incoming. There are a lot of similarities, like Sonic getting kidnapped by the story's villain, Tails working together with the island locals in an attempt to rescue him, and he even MacGyvers some makeshift devices in order to carry out this task. Even these panels look similar. I wonder, just like the Sonic leg injury thing, was Daniel and company aware of the Tails' 30th anniversary special as they were creating this miniseries, or is it just another happy coincidence? Update, based on this Twitter post by Daniel himself, something tells me he knew. Anyway, back to the review. Well, unlike the special where Tails was dealing with dangerously cartoony villains, Tails is dealing with a much more menacing threat. Despite his best shot, he loses and is tossed away. But this is something horror films, and other genres in general, do. Leave a character presumed dead, then they come back at the 11th hour to aid in the final battle. That's what I assume will happen in the final issue. For the time being, I do like the panels of Tails descending into darkness. Mecha Sonic falling back into his villainous ways is an interesting study. According to Sigma, he tried rewriting Mecha's original programming, which resulted in the helpful flower-loving robot that we first saw him in the story. But then the original program resurfaced, thanks to the fight with Mecha Knuckles, and his mind's now warped. In this issue, Mecha claims that his mind is finally clear, and that he hated being on Scrapnik Island, and wanted Eggman to retrieve him so that they can rule the world together. Yeah, I'm going to go with Sigma's earlier explanation on this one. How else would Mecha Sonic go from protecting Sonic from Mecha Knuckles last issue, to strapping Sonic on a table in this one? Being knocked out and seeing those visions more than likely remind him of who he truly was, and he relapsed when he reactivated. It is also possible that the original program was always present and active. It was just buried by Sigma's handiwork. Upon seeing Sonic again, it occasionally popped up until the fight with Mecha Knuckles brought it out in full force. In a way, Sigma might have brainwashed Mecha when he tried to reprogram him, and the original personality could do nothing but observe. If that's the case, no wonder he went mad. Mecha Sonic's plan seems to be a mind swap with Sonic, using old Death Egg equipment and the Miles Electric. I assume Tails' communication algorithm he created last time somehow makes this possible. We know this plan won't succeed because it's Sonic, though it would be an interesting twist if it did. Based on Mecha's dialogue, he was not happy that Eggman abandoned him, and that he wants revenge. Let's assume Mecha's plan works, and he ends up inside Sonic's body. Essentially, he'll become Sonic, and will go after Eggman. If so, he'll find out the reason the Doctor never retrieved him. He already has a better robotic Sonic. People have said in the comments of my issue 2 video that Mecha Sonic came first, then it was Metal Sonic. But as I said in that video, according to Sonic Origins, the newest compilation of Sonics 1 through 3 and CD, CD falls squarely between 1 and 2. Personally though, I would have had CD placed after Sonic 3 and Knuckles, because of the logical progression of Sonic's robotic duplicates, from the clunky Mecha Sonic 1 to the sleeker Mecha Sonic 2, and finally the one and only Metal Sonic. But that's not the case. So unless Sega retcons the order of the 4 games again, which is a Sega move these days, as of now, CD is between 1 and 2, meaning Metal Sonic is now the first duplicate, and chances are IDW Sonic will more than likely honor this order. Sonic's words about giving villains a second chance only to backfire on him later. I wonder if Daniel took notice of all the times people complained whenever Sonic goes easy on his enemies and the consequences that follow? Why else would he write these words for Sonic? To be fair, the consequences involve factors beyond Sonic's control, and he was called out for these acts. Now, depending on when this takes place in the timeline, we may see Sonic cut back on showing his enemies mercy a bit. Maybe. Okay, Easter eggs. The Sega Menacer. I love it when Sega products make their way into Sonic stories. There was the VR headset in the test run arc, and even looking at the games, there's the Dreamcast and Eggman's cockpit from Sonic Unleashed. Remember that? If not, you just learned something today. What will be the next Sega product the creators will sneak into these stories? The Sega Activator? The Aura Interactor? Or perhaps the Simulator 2 Action Chair? Daniel pointed out on his Twitter a nod to Sonic 3 and Knuckles that would have gone over my head. When Tails' scout are locked on to Mecha Sonic, those words were referencing the advertising of Sonic and Knuckles' lock-on technology, aka combining it with Sonic 3 for a more complete experience, or with Sonic 2 so you can play as Knuckles. There is one more Easter egg I want to point out. Colorist Natalie Fordrain posted this image of Mecha Sonic alongside this one from Metroid Fusion. I think she's trying to imply that in this issue, Mecha Sonic is the SA-X. Both are unstoppable doppelgangers of the main hero, and both stalk their prey. The issue continues to deliver on the horror atmosphere, while at the same time gives off a tragic element. You feel bad for Sigma, who just wants a life free from Eggman's shadow, only for things to go wrong, and despite being the horror movie monster of this story, there is something tragic about Mecha Sonic being abandoned by his creator. Reminds me of a certain iconic horror movie monster. Like many horror movie monsters, he needs to be taken down. We'll see what happens next time between Sonic and Mecha Sonic as Scrapnik Island comes to a close. See ya then. Game over, Tails. Game over.